Yeah, awesome. So, yeah. So, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool, cool. So the video sort of paused a bit, so I was thinking it was the network. So, you guys are welcome once again. So, quickly now we are going to be diving into the AME formally. So, could you tell us a bit, about the inspiration behind Cheqd, and why do we currently need Cheqd right now in this space?
Sure. So Cheqd is trying to solve the problem of identity and reputation online, as well as in the real world. What do I mean when I talk about identity? Well, the simple example that a lot of people think about is when they think about their government documents like passports, driver's licenses, etc. They're often called identity documents. So that's one angle of it. But more broadly, when you think about it, anytime you sign up online for a service like Binance or Twitter or Facebook, there is some data about you as an individual or as a company that is being held by an online service. And what we believe is all of that information should be in your control as the user. You should have a choice on whether you want to share it with someone or share it with a company, and how much of it would you like to go and read to someone. Currently, this is the case. Whenever you think about online experiences, most of this information is held by centralized big tech companies on centralized servers. And if you wanted to move across various different digital services, you cannot achieve that or do that easily. And so the Cheqd network is a layer one blockchain that has been built on Cosmos. We can go dive into more about that. But we build on a lot of the industry standard technology standards that exist within this space that helps app developers and people build solutions to make your data portable, private, and within your control. We don't ourselves go and tackle a lot of different use cases or topics ourselves. We're an infrastructure company. But what we are sort of looking at is to build the best solution that is out there for other people to go and build digital identity solutions on. A different aspect of that is often reputation that we talk about. And a way of looking at that is when you're interacting with people online, you might not necessarily just be known by your legal digital identity, but you might be known under some pseudonym or some handle through which you're known that has some reputation attached with it. And so for even there's one side of the spectrum, which is your legal identity, and the other side of the spectrum is pseudonymous identity and reputation, and we cover the entire range.
Yeah, fine work, guys. So, Rose, do you have something else to add?
I think I'm happy to jump in. So Ankur kind of shared the broad round of Cheqd and our various different products. Creds is an additional product which is built on top of the network. Ankur kind of alluded to again all around kind of reputation. So for community building within the space, it's obviously incredibly difficult to build a reputation as you kind of navigate across the different communities that exist within Web3. As you find out more about different tokens, different projects, it can be hard to kind of track how you've engaged in different projects and how you've kind of built up a reputation. And so we're using identity solutions, the self-sovereign identity solutions, to help solve kind of that reputation aspect as well, which we can talk more about.
Yeah, we most certainly will talk more about that because you sort of mentioned that it helps our identity and reputation. So, talking about reputation, how does it cover that aspect? And what are some of those tools? What are some of those tools to ensure that the aspect of your project that has to do with reputation is actually what are those tools that actually makes it brings it to reality per se?
Yeah, I could give an example of that. You can go to a website that we've been creating called creds.xyz. We call it your reputation, private, portable, and secure. And part of that sort of like concept is the same way that you can have a crypto wallet that holds all of your tokens and all of your NFTs. You should be able to have an identity wallet that keeps all of your reputation information and all of your identity information. Within that, we have certain kinds of technology that we support on our network, like zero-knowledge proof or zero-knowledge credentials, as they're called. Sometimes you might have heard about this being described as selective disclosure. And the idea behind that is, say you had some piece of information that said, maybe you hold more than 1 million tokens, or maybe some reputation, like, aspects of your reputation is the amount of governance votes that you've taken or participated in within a DAO. Being able to reveal parts of that information to someone online without necessarily going and doxing your wallet is a great example of how zero-knowledge technology or selective disclosure technology can be applied. But you can extend that not just to facts or reputation pieces that are based on what you have been doing or interacting with on Ledger, but you can extend that to things like what sort of healthcare have you received? What sort of education credentials you have? What's your employment history and background? For example, being able to go and prove whom were you employed by from a certain duration to certain duration without, like, coming across as lying about it online on, say, LinkedIn or Twitter. And all of that is enabled by having people be able to keep all of that information in identity wallets. One crucial part of this is the cryptographic proof, the cryptographic signatures or the hashes that make sure that all of this data is tamper-proof and has not been modified, is stored on the Cheqd network or on the blockchain. But the actual private information about yourself is never gone and written onto a blockchain, because that can generally be a bad idea in terms of privacy if you're writing personal and private information onto some form of decentralized system. So what we do is a blend of on-ledger and off-ledger technology. The cryptographic proof itself would be written onto the Cheqd network blockchain, but the actual information, or the credentials as we are calling them, the digital credentials, those are typically held in an off-ledger wallet. And then on top of that, we layer on the zero-knowledge or the selective disclosure technology that gives you full control as a user on how much of that information do you want to reveal to somebody or not.
All right, cool stuff. That was absolutely fantastic. So how does talking about your trusted data markets, how does it help us to manage our data, and then how does it help us to actually gain full control of our data and also preserve those data at the same time?
Ross, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can get started and then we can go in. I think, so bringing this back to kind of a bit more philosophical very briefly about kind of the internet and where things have gone in the past, because I think it's quite fascinating. So the internet is basically just various different layers, like a cake, of different sets of technology that have come to exist. And over the kind of the 20 years of Web 2, there was a lot of building going on by large companies like Facebook, like Google, all the large companies that you know about, basically. And they basically all built products at the application layer of the internet. So they built products where it's basically where kind of the internet and all these different technologies meet the end user. And what this meant is that these large organizations which built at the application layer, so right on the top, were able to kind of gather users, engage them, give them products, and give them good user experiences, also at the same time basically acting as the gatekeepers to everything that exists on the internet. And so philosophically, the belief that the space that Ankur and I are in around this idea of decentralized identity is that the internet was never built with an identity layer, which means anyone that is monetizing the user data is doing so at this application layer. what Cheq seeks to do is basically take the ability to monetize data, or to kind of monetize and build commercial models, and take it away from just being at the application layer, which just large companies benefit from, and take it deeper into the stack, so individuals can actually be involved in the way that their data is kind of traded and monetized with their control. And so that's what we're doing. So our token, Cheq, CHEQ, the Cheq token is basically used to create a different commercial model for identity. So individuals can have more empowerment around the way that their data is managed. And the Cheq token is used as a way of incentivizing issuers of data to change kind of towards this new business model, because there's a reason a lot of companies are not going to want to move to a business model like this, because ultimately they benefit from the way it's done. Our belief at Cheqd is that to make kind of shift happen, that can actually make it happen and beneficial for them, which is what the Cheq token is used for. And that's the kind of the building blocks of trusted markets. I'll pass to Ankur, you might want to expand.
Yeah, so for example, a lot of people might have heard of Brave browser and how that has something called the basic attention token, where in exchange for your browsing activity or browsing data, people get rewards or tokens back. It's a very similar concept. Like if you're able to have your data in a digital and portable fashion, you should be able to charge companies for being able to move it across from one platform to another. A good example of this is, say you wanted to move across from one crypto exchange to a different crypto exchange and wanted to do KYC again. Maybe that can be simplified. Or you wanted to go across from, say you have an account on Twitter and you want to move across to a competitor of Twitter, then you can do that using these digital credentials, and perhaps being able to charge the service that you're moving across to as well. We don't necessarily set a price for all of this data ourselves. That is completely in control of you as the holder of that data or the issuer of that data, on deciding whether that should be free or whether that should be $5 or $10. And what we build is like essentially the system that allows you to make this data exchange and transaction happen in a safe, secure, and privacy-preserving fashion.
Okay. So I sort of, I heard when you were giving the introduction earlier, when you talked about the fact that Cheqd is trying to give us a decentralized experience, and also, so my question is, how do you hope to bring this decentralized experience to users of Cheqd, and also the users of the Web3 alike? And also, I discovered, that Cheqd is sort of like a public permissionless network that is built with self-sovereign identity, which is the SSI. So my question in turn, should I say the second question would be, do you have any form of, should I say, authentication, or perhaps when we are sort of making transactions within the platform, do you have sort of like any authentication that gives users maybe permission to do stuff? Or I don't know if you get my question.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And you're absolutely right. So let's say as a user, the same way that when you use a crypto wallet and you have to authorize a transaction on a DeFi app or a centralized exchange, you get a question that says, do you want to authorize this transaction? There's a very similar thing that happens in the identity wallets that Cheq integrates with, as well as the creds.xyz experience that we built. It comes up with a question to the user that says, do you want to share this information? And what parts of this do you want to go and share? And part of that is to give back control and the authentication to the user to say, I authorize the release of this information to somebody else. And I know that the person that I'm interacting or sharing this information to, how they're going to use it. What you can also do as a user is be able to go back and say at some point I shared some information with you today and established a link with your identity wallet, being able to go in the future and say, I don't want to keep that connection with somebody else's identity wallet anymore, and being able to revoke that permission. That's also possible with identity wallets. So a lot of this is based around being able to have user consent. In some cases, you might even be able to, this doesn't exist in our identity wallet yet, but like the general idea is you might even be able to set automated rules that say, in this scenario, like let's say a website needs to know, is my age above the age of 18, then give that away automatically and freely. But if a website needs to know what my real name is or what my real first name is, which city that I live in, then maybe that should be prompted to me as a question, the same way that a crypto wallet will prompt you to say, do you want to authorize this transaction? And that gets then approved by the user. And so what we sort of like, build in is the mechanisms to do this kind of trusted data exchange.
Exactly, cool stuff. So just to build on just a follow-up question from what you've said already. I understand that Cheqd is building upon certain businesses as a foundation using your network. So what are those businesses that Cheqd is building upon? Can you elaborate?
Sure, Ross, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So you're kind of interested in the use cases? Is that kind of what sounds interesting to you, Tim?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it will be very profiting and interesting for the listeners at Binance Live. It's quite interesting because I can see on your website. So want to see the possibilities of actually digging into these opportunities that Cheqd is providing. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, so anyone that's been around the kind of the blockchain, Web3, crypto space will have heard of this idea of trying to disintermediate the various different third parties that exist within the current way the world kind of the functions and is organized. Intermediaries basically act as kind of middlemen that help to manage the flow of information and funds from one thing to another. And in doing so, they take a small fee or a large fee to do that. And the way that kind of this idea of self-sovereign identity works is essentially, it's called a trust triangle. And there's three different kind of key participants within that organization, within that kind of that relationship. You have the holder, which is all of us. We're all holders at some point in our life, whether we're holding a passport, an education certificate, our medical records, a visa to go to another country. All of these different things are different kind of records that we hold as individuals. So that's the holder. The issuer is someone who issues these credentials to the individual. So you can think of that as a government issuing a passport, or a driving authority issuing a driving license, or a university issuing a university certificate to say you've completed your course. So that's the issuer. And then you have the third one, which is the verifier. And the verifier basically is someone who's consuming that data or they're receiving that data. So you can think of that as if you have got a university certificate and you apply for a job, and that company basically wants to verify that you have got that correct certificate and that you've kind of got the right qualifications. So that kind of threefold triangle, holder, issuer, verifier, is kind of the key thing to have in mind when you're thinking about this. And then in terms of the use cases that are all built around this kind of way of understanding it, a couple of good ones that come to mind. So I kind of alluded to it, education. So right now, you have an education system whereby we have courses online, we have universities, we have various different ways that you can kind of get a credential for your education. But every time you want to go and prove that credential, generally it's very difficult for you to do so. If anyone's been to university here or has an education certificate from school, generally that's kind of in a drawer, it's locked away, or it's a PDF document. It's not very easy user experience. And so if you want to go and prove you have that credential, generally a company will have to pay a third party to go and do that background check. So this is one of the good use cases. Education, it means you can quite quickly prove the credentials you have, the education credentials you have, and verify them. And in doing that, you can actually, using the Cheq token, which is used to kind of manage the payments of this, that token basically can help incentivize the issuer give you that credential. So that's education. You've got medical records. So imagine you as an individual going through your life, you're having vaccinations, you're having operations, you're finding out things about your kind of your body that you want to basically have recorded records of. That can be recorded, and every time you visit a hospital, you can present that data and they understand who you are and as a person, rather than having to scramble around from different pieces of information. So medical, education, you've got banking information. It might be something to do with your financial regulation or some authority that you've kind of got the right financial kind of permissions to act in. I'm trying to think of all the other ones, Ankur, that are slipping my mind.
The big one for us is being able to prove your reputation as you participate in crypto communities or Web3 communities. The interactions that you're having on Telegram, on Discord, you're probably across many different Telegram channels and Discord channels. And I think everybody has seen there's a lot of times there are people who are scammers or people who have lookalike accounts with a picture or a handle that looks very similar to yours, or prominent figures within the crypto industry. And so one of the other major use cases that we're looking at is community members or moderators of these crypto communities being able to award people digital credentials that say you're a real community member, you've been involved in this particular community for say 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and being able to then use that, for example, whenever you join a new crypto project or new crypto communities channels, being able to prove that you're not a scammer or a spammer who's just created a new throwaway handle that's a lookalike, but that you've got a track record or a history of participating in other sort of like crypto projects and making valuable contributions. That's a big area that we see a lot of people applying our technology to as well.
I
think Tim had a connection issue.
Oh, crypto attacks. Are we still streaming?
Is this right?
Eduardo, still streaming. Okay. Okay, we're still streaming, so maybe Ankur we just improvise here. Take it away. So we talked about oh, Tim, you're back. Hey, Tim. Okay, so should we go into detail about a more specific use case that we've been building, because that might help as well?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that, guys. A call came in, so we sort of messed up my network.
That's okay.
All right, so let's talk about your tokens and your token utilities, of course.
Cool.
That's correct. Yes.
Ankur, do you want to take it away, or shall I go for it?
Yeah, so we've got the Cheq token, which is CHEQ. The Cheq token is a utility token because it's used to write and pay for these identity transactions that are happening on the network. So in terms of all of the use cases across the various different industries that we're describing, being able to write those pieces of cryptographic proof or cryptographic signatures that say this is an untampered piece of information that happens on our network, being able to say that this piece of this digital credential was issued to someone, saying that you're a moderator within a particular crypto forum, being able to then go and cancel or suspend that and revoke that and say you're no longer a moderator for the community or no longer a member of that community. That is something you might want to go and prove. Again, a transaction that happens on our network. And what we've sort of built in is also a mechanism, like we said before, that anytime this kind of trusted information exchange happens, how do the parties within that ecosystem pay each other? That also happens with the Cheq token. So that's the various different aspects through which it adds utility within the data ecosystem.
All right. So guys, listening about Binance Live, we are about to go into the questions from the XPs. But of course, before we dive into those questions, do you have any closing words for us before we dive into the questions from the XPs? Maybe something that we haven't touched that is important within the introductory segment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're on our website. If you scroll to the top of our website, just so other people can see this if you're still so we have a public product roadmap. If you hit solutions, then at the bottom of that you'll see scroll left, solutions, and then product roadmap 2024. So we have our whole roadmap completely publicly available. Anyone can go and check out what we're doing. It really helps us keep us accountable to what we've said we're going to do. So a few things that we're excited about, which we're kind of bringing to the network in the coming months on both our consumer product creds, but also onto the network itself. So one thing that's important to us is kind of making sure that all of the tools that we're building is accessible across the entire ecosystem. I think one of the things that makes blockchain unique is that other networks can build upon what you've done, and it's all very much like the open source mindset. And so on the left here, you can see this upgrade, the orange one, and then the left, you can see this on-chain proofs. So we're bringing the possibility for other networks beyond Cheqd to leverage all the things that we've been building over the last 3 years, build that into their product stack. And this is like kind of in the broader theme of modularity. So that means that the Cheq token will be able to be kind of, the utility of the Cheq token can be used more broadly across different networks, different organizations, different communities. And then if you scroll a little bit more, you'll be able to see a few other things. So one of the things that's coming up next is introducing analytics into our platform, and that will enable more people to be able to use these credentials that we issue and actually get data on communities to understand who are their top followers, who are their most engaged members, who are the people that kind of should be rewarded most. And so .creds or creds.xyz, you can start there and start playing along. And one final thing that I would want to mention is also introducing into our applications. So being able to sell a credential, pay for a credential, verify using credentials. So we have some sort of beliefs around where NFTs are good and when NFTs are not so good. And we strongly believe that the direction that identity is going in is going to be much more towards the use of these credentials for reputation, for identity. And so, yeah, we're excited to introduce these selling of credentials, which could well be the next NFT craze.
Of course, I love the NFTs. I was not really preserving that question for for because I think I got a question that has to do with the NFT and XP. Well, thank you for essentially covering that. It's a very vital information. So, guys, before we move on to the questions from the XPs, you can just go to the website and you will find all the socials. You would find the Cheqd is currently accessible on Telegram, and you can find that they're accessible on you can check X Space, and just to do a proper follow-up, keep you up to speed. They're available on Discord, and you can actually check out some videos on YouTube. You can check out LinkedIn and also check them out on your Medium. So quickly now, we will be asking the first question from the X Space. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, definitely.
Go for it.
Yeah, so the first person is asking, I would love to stake with your token. So how does staking work? And what's the minimum amount of Cheqd that I need to stake in this perspective, annual returns, and also any more information? Do you have any more information I need to know about it?
Sure. So staking on our network, there are no minimums. So any amount works. And it works very similar to any other Cosmos network or project. So if you come across things like Atom or Osmo or Akash, those are exactly the same kind of wallets that you use, and exactly the same kind of mechanism. You can download wallets like Kepler wallets or Leap wallets that allow you to manage Cosmos tokens. You can also buy, there's a ERC20 version of this. And if you want to check out the APRs or the staking rewards, you can find this on explorer.cheq.io. So if you go on that website, that shows you the current APR percentage for returns on the network.
So, Rose, you have any more? You have something to add to this?
No, I think I think that's how you go about it. I think if people understand staking generally, obviously, we have I think roughly 50 validators on the network. You can obviously choose one of those validators using either Leap wallet, as Ankur said, LEAP wallet, which is a little frog logo, or Kepler, or we also have a staking platform on something called OmniFlix. So if you were to go to cheqd.omniflix.co, you can also stake using that platform as well.
Thank you so much. I'll be moving on to the next question now. This user, Sonic, is asking about marketing. So we said marketing Cheqd.io is a central element for every project. So that everyone knows, the potential that the project can bring is actually vital to achieve the goals set. So what is your strategy to attract users and investors to your platform and keep them in the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. We work very closely within the Cosmos SDK ecosystem, in which we've built the blockchain platform that we run. But in addition to the Cosmos SDK ecosystem, our technology could be applied regardless of which blockchain you're running on. So it applies in terms of identity solutions for Ethereum, Polygon, Polkadot, Solana, any of these. Is very agnostic of those ecosystems. So we work not just with the blockchain ecosystems themselves, but app developers who are building Web 2.0 solutions as well as Web 3 solutions on all of those different platforms. In addition to that, we work very closely with a lot of different communities within crypto and Web 3 that want to be doing digital identity. We don't do everything ourselves. We work through a lot of different partnerships. Recently, for example, we've been working on a lot of partnerships on how our technology can be applied to something we call verifiable AI, or VAI, which is how could our identity and trusted data marketplace tech be applied to all of the different emerging use cases within machine learning or generative AI. And we don't do that ourselves. We've announced a couple of different partnerships with Nuclei and others over the past few weeks. And so the broad idea is to work very closely with the developers and the users of every single other platform that we work with on making sure the word gets spread.
So I actually think that you are sort of reading my mind, because I was just about to ask you, the questions about the partnerships and the
Yeah, Ross, do you want to go and expand into some of the partnerships work? Because I know
that you actually covered that, within the conclusion while you were answering that question. So thank you so much.
Perfect.
Okay, quickly now, I would move on to the next question. So guys, before I go on to, the next question from the X space, we would love to be touching on some of your questions, from the live segment. So you could just send your question in. We would pick those questions, from Binance while you're sending those questions. So, so please do to send your questions, and of course, you make sure that you must have already been, a member of Cheq's Telegram community before we take your question. So don't forget that we would verify to find out if you're already a member. So the next question is saying, what are the key features and benefits of holding your token for investors and users alike?
That's a very good question. So Cheqd is a utility token, and the various different aspects of it are used to pay for identity and trusted data transactions. Some of these are like, the examples that we went into were proving your identity for financial purposes, for healthcare purposes, and education purposes. That's within the traditional industries or traditional enterprises and sectors. And in the more emerging space, we see how do you go and prove your identity and reputation in crypto networks, or how do you go and apply what kind of information is trusted within when going and training AI models? What kind of information is trustworthy because it was generated by a human versus generated by an AI? All of these various different aspects are paid for in the Cheqd token on our network when these identity transactions take place. And so that is the utility that is offered by our token.
And as I kind of mentioned there, like, so a lot of the kind of the blockchain space, a lot of the tokens are used basically as incentive mechanisms to help developers start kind of engaging with whatever technology you're building. So if that's identity, then it's often helping developers kind of start building the technology, bringing customers on, and so forth. But we're also introducing a way of kind of helping consumers, actually end users, start engaging more with the token. And so that's what the like selling a credential with creds, being able to pay to verify a credential. So it means that we're kind of getting two sides of this like marketplace, which is somewhat rare within this crypto space. It makes our token quite unique because it has utility both for the actual developers who are building software, and then also has utility for the holders of the credentials who are actually holding and sharing their credential.
Yeah, cool, bro. Cool. I actually love the details about that. So, the next user, political, that's quite a catchy name. So he's asking about some of the developments, the upcoming developments and milestones or product enhancement that you're currently focused on, and how do these initiatives contribute to the company's overall growth strategy and vision for the future of crypto payments?
Yeah, I think Ross was just talking about the product roadmap that we have. We're a very young blockchain project. I think it's almost exactly 3 years to the day that we started off, and we've had a very strong pace of shipping updates both on Ledger as well as the various different software kits that app developers need to go and build on our network. And you can go and see this on our website. It is cheqd.io, checked, as in getting your identity checked. If you go, you'll find our entire product roadmap, as well as what have we already shipped within the first three and a half months of this year, and what we are planning for the future is all listed out there. We tend to be extremely open and transparent with all of our plans. And this year we're looking at doing stuff around how could you store not just these digital information in off-ledger identity wallets, but being able to write these on chain. We are looking at tokenomics improvements that allow app developers and people who are building these identity solutions to customize the forms of payment and the forms of exchange that are happening. And we also were talking about this project called creds.xyz, which is more about your crypto and Web3 reputation. Over there, we are looking at how can you go and gather up all your data from Web 2.0 sources, like say your Spotify, your Netflix account, have that in a single place where you control it, being able to perhaps message and prove your identity on Telegram and Discord using Telegram and Discord bots that can verify your identity and reputation. There's a ton of stuff. I could probably spend hours and hours going into every single bit of detail that we're working on. But I would really recommend going up to our website like cheqd.io and then looking at the roadmap section, which goes into a lot of detail on all of the things that we're working on this year.
And the website is actually quite interesting and loaded with a lot of data and information. So I think just by going through the website, one can actually have a very good insight about what Cheqd is all about. Currently on the website right now, if
Did we lose Tim and his audio, or?
I'm sure that we will exceed good questions. Just in how much you could send your community. So the live segment, this user is asking, how do we, as holders, earn passive income with Cheqd?
I think Tim, you did drop out a little bit there, but I think the question is, how do we earn passive income with the Cheq token, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I mean, generally, like as a team, we try not to speculate on like how to kind of increase like in terms of the Cheq token, but I think people generally understand the idea of staking. So staking or proof of stake networks basically allow you to stake and help us as an organization, as the wider organization, help secure the network and incentivize the validators and help the validators run their software and so forth to help secure the network. And so when you choose to stake the Cheq token, which means you basically delegate tokens to a validator who stakes on your behalf, they give you a reward for doing so. And so I guess the passive income, although we don't tend to use those terms, comes by basically staking the Cheq tokens to a validator. So that's the kind of the main way, and that's the general way that most sort of like networks work. In terms of kind of the Cheq token itself, obviously there's the rewards that come from the validators. Obviously the Cheq token itself is a utility token. It's got value. But that token obviously has a different value depending on the market and so forth. And so that's something that we can't really comment on. But as an organization, we've got a strong roadmap. We've got a very strong team, a great CTO, and we're very determined to kind of continue building in this space. And so we're excited for what's to come.
Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. Just going through the second question now, from the space, I've got a reaction from the first user. So the second user is asking, what is your token strategy to maintain, uptrend value?
So in general, we don't tend to comment on price as a team because we are building a utility token and utility network. For us, it's about the fact that every single use case or every single industry requires some form of digital identity, some form of reputation online. And so the applicability of like what we're building is really, really, really broad. It becomes quite interesting when we look at how many different industries and how many different partners we are already aligned with and that we are working with. And so our hope is, and what we tend to focus on as a team, is to make sure that our technology has applicability across as many different industries and use cases as possible.
Yeah, and I think Tim, the important thing to remember with all of this is, the great thing about Web3, about the blockchain ecosystem is the reason that these tokens exist is to try and create business models that kind of enable more people to get engaged in the system and people from across the open source community to be able to benefit from building software. And so a token in the ecosystem is only as good as the tech and the software that you're building. That's ultimately the whole point of utility tokens. And so everything can be measured on, like Ankur said, what is getting built on the network, what is the quality of the tech that's being built, who are the partnerships. And so we're engaged with the European Union, digital identity foundations, which kind of help to kind of build and direct the whole ecosystem, and engage with a number of kind of large and small organizations all building on our network.
Thank you so much. It's been absolutely amazing. So you touched on your roadmap earlier. I think we are sort of going to circle back to that, because this user is asking, what are your top three priorities for 2024?
Yeah, Ross, you could take that as the senior product manager on this.
Yeah, top three priorities. So number one would be helping get kind of this technology into more people's hands, because we do believe that this technology is going to be like a really have a lot of potential to help people kind of understand how they can better manage their identity. The European Union is really moving quite quickly towards a whole new world where technology will be much more done in this way. And so our consumer application Cheqd is a great way of kind of getting people more familiar with this technology, understanding how that they control their data and identity, and basically, leveraging it. So getting the ID into many, many more people's hands would be number one. Number two would be to onboard more and more organizations to use the payment rails that we have. And by using those payment rails, they can sort of bring more end customers on. So we're speaking to companies in the medical space, we're speaking to banks and those kind of companies. We've got education use cases. So essentially build enough kind of software and all the tooling to make it as easy as possible to kind of build on top of our network. So the first one, kind of get end users into it. The second one, get organizations using it. And then I think my third top priority, to try and think about it, I think would be probably to build software that generally it can be used across the entire blockchain ecosystem. So to create more interoperability, to create more kind of tap into the modularity narrative. The Cosmos ecosystem has something called the interchain, which is essentially where the internet was kind of there to try and bridge all these different kind of siloed off networks across the late 20th century. The interchain is here now to kind of start building much more connectivity across them. And so for Cheqd, I think having that interoperability, helping other organizations use what we're doing, I think is another way of doing it. So yeah, those three would be my things. Ankur, any changes on those?
No, I think that covers it quite brilliantly, actually.
All right, thank you, Ankur. Thank you, Rose. While we are waiting for the next question, I would like to know, what has been the most challenging aspect of managing, your project, Cheqd so far?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. I think the most challenging aspect of this for us is looking at how broadly applicable digital identity is one of the more interesting or challenging aspects, because it's very hard to explain to people how broadly our technology can be applied. So when people say, what is Cheqd and what are the kinds of use cases that we work on, it takes a while to understand, oh, wow, like it could be applied to something as wide as could be applied to AI and machine learning type use cases, as well as be used by something like, for example, the European Union. And I think that's where it gets quite interesting sometimes to make people understand how like vast the number of different use cases that we're looking at is. It's almost as if you were going and inventing a whole new category like NFTs or like automated, like, market maker exchanges like Uniswap or something like that. So it's very, very early days. Like, a lot of the team has been involved in decentralized identity and digital identity for 6-7 years and have done this, like, in the traditional sort of digital identity industry, and now within the blockchain industry. So we come with a lot of experience. We also, like, sit across a lot of industry bodies and industry forums, on which, like, we co-chair or work with a lot of different organizations and bodies on setting the actual standards within the industry on how this identity technology gets applied. So that's probably one of the hardest challenges that we have.
Thank you so much for being so transparent and blunt about this question. And I actually like the fact that you guys actually came up with solutions to tackle those issues you encountered. So the next user is asking, what drives your sustainable value, your long-term sustainable value?
Ross, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I guess the sustainable value is kind of similar to what Ankur said there. Like, so it's, making something sustainable is all about kind of having end users and customers and organizations, continuing to build with your product. Something that makes us definitely sustainable is just the fact that the direction that identity is moving in, across many different governments, many different kind of international institutions, the EU, for example, as a very big one, and generally, like, there's this idea that America invents things, the EU regulates things, but ultimately the regulation does end up kind of being applied very broadly across the world. And so this direction that EU is moving in, where by 2025, every member state of the EU will be required to have a digital identity wallet built much in the way that we've been building our technology, means that there is this, like, sustainability of what we're building, because all countries are going to have kind of mandated to have this technology built into what they're doing. And so we're only going to see an uptick in this technology, and we're poised pretty well to kind of tap into that. So there's definitely, like, regulations which add to that sustainability. Within the kind of the Web3 space, there's also a real general move towards identity as a kind of a key theme within this next kind of emerging excitement within the space. More and more organizations are now kind of looking at identity as one of the biggest problems within Web3, but also one of the biggest opportunities for Web3 to solve within Web2. And so as there's been a lot of hype around, and that concern can be kind of an antidote to the concern around AI, is very much to do with identity and all the things we're building. So I think a lot of the problems in the world, both kind of politically, but also, like, technologically, largely stem from this lack of an identity layer being within the internet. And so I think we've got, like, a real sustainability because we solve such a broad range of the world's problems.
Awesome. So I'll be taking the next question, the final question from the live segment. This user is asking, do you guys have any plans to list on Binance?
Sorry, your audio broke up a bit there, but I think I got the question. Never say never.
Yeah,
it's
asking if you have any plans to list on Binance.
Thanks for that question. I think it was just breaking up there a bit. Never say never. We are usually in conversations with multiple centralized exchanges, multiple decentralized exchanges. A lot of it is driven by the community as well, but I would recommend people to follow us on X, on Telegram. If you look up cheq.io, then you'll be able to find out the latest information on upcoming centralized exchange listings and decentralized exchange listings over there.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been absolutely amazing so far. I want to use this opportunity to say a big thank you to the team, and also a very big thank you, to Picture Attack, and also those listening at Binance Live, for sending in those questions. and also the question from my end. Thank you so much for tackling those questions. So
And thanks for having us and
Yeah,
for
brilliant.
the
yeah,
audience to
so
answer questions.
yeah, so I just want to ask, stability and trust in following the community takeovers and some other issues which some investors or users have actually encountered in this space.
Did you catch the Anchor? I didn't. I think Tim, you
No,
dropped out a
I
little
think,
there as well.
yeah.
I think it was something to do with trust. Was it, Tim? So something to do with how we build trust.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess like trust is probably the underpinning of everything we've talked about. Like, trying to rebuild the way that trust is managed online, so that trust isn't, it's not about kind of trusting these large organizations. It's about being able to actually have the trust that much more of a interpersonal, relationships, being able to trust people because you know that they're sovereign individuals. They can decide, they can make the decisions themselves. They can verify each other. We have the data in our own wallets. So it all comes down to giving people more independence and more kind of freedoms with their data, and being able to share that more freely and have transparency around that. I think the problem with trust definitely comes when things sort of data and our identity is in a black box and we don't know what's inside it, and we don't know kind of what's being recorded about us and what's said about us. And although we've got a long way to go, the web is evolving, and there's this idea of kind of building this like web of trust where the new ways that kind of blockchain is being implemented, that identity is being implemented, trust can be kind of rebuilt across the internet and across society.
That was actually quite inspiring. We went in quite philosophical there.
Always.
Okay.
Cool.
Right. Thank you so much, guys. Do you have any closing words for us before we
No,
this
like
session?
I
I
said,
think it's been an amazing 1 hour presentation so far.
I'd say the best way to check all of this is go to creds.xyz, creds.xyz, to check out the identity wallet that we've been building out. Go to cheq.io, our website, cheqd.io, where you can check out our roadmap. You can check out the partners and the different use cases that we work on, as well as what's planned for the rest of 2024 and much beyond. You can also go and look at all of the existing partnerships that we already have and all of the existing software items in our roadmap that we've already delivered. So check those out, and then stay tuned to our socials for new announcements on partnerships and exchange listings and so on.
All right. So thank you so much, for essentially coming out, taking time out of your busy schedule to share this information with us. So I wish Cheqd the very best for the coming future, and I wish to host you guys again in future. So have a good day, guys, and I wish you guys the very best. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Jim.
having us
Bye.
on. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ankur. Bye.